What's up everybody, this is Master EN Gamer, and yeah, it's one of those videos again. Earlier this week, more scathing information came out about Activision Blizzard pertaining to the allegations and lawsuit, which of course has been under development over the past few months at this point, and with this new information, there's a couple things we've now learned. 1, the upper management at Blizzard is absolute garbage, and 2, the departure of Jeff Kaplan and just about every other notable Overwatch developer over the past year or so has more or less all been due to this terrible upper management. So for today's video, I think it's necessary to take a look at the greater picture at this point, specifically the greater picture when it comes to the Overwatch franchise and upcoming Overwatch 2, because as much as I've been trying to ignore it for the past several months, I think the reality of the franchise's predicament at this point is painfully clear. Now, before I get into this video, I do need to emphasize that my intention here is by no means to belittle what the actual developers and employees of Blizzard had to go through under this horrendous management. I'm not trying to write them off as just something insignificant. Absolutely, there are major issues and people had some very, very serious incidents as employees of the company. But as someone who focuses on making content pertaining to Overwatch specifically, I think it's important at this point to take a very serious look at the future of this franchise. My sympathies go out to all the hardworking devs at Blizzard and on the Overwatch development team, and I'm not blaming them for the state of Overwatch 2 and the current Overwatch as well, but the franchise and company are in a terrible place. And so, let's start with talking about the company, Blizzard. I honestly don't see how Blizzard can recover from any of this at this point. The company's name has been dragged through the mud so thoroughly over and over and over again over the past, honestly, few years at this point, that going forward, trying to market anything as being a product of Blizzard is essentially just going to be a death sentence for it. Sure, there are always going to be fanatics who are still sticking with the company, and I guess I could kind of consider myself that to some extent, even though I only really care about Overwatch and I've never really cared about Blizzard as a company, to be honest, and certainly have never been super invested in any of their other games. But overall, going forward, I don't think anyone is going to have a positive view of Blizzard or anything they end up putting out in terms of products and games because of everything that has happened. Now, sure, maybe after enough time has passed, enough people will sort of forget about it, as people tend to do with these sort of things, but honestly, there have just been so many mistakes and blatant terrible decisions and just shortcomings that I don't think Blizzard as a company can recover. I will note that Activision, by and large, is probably going to get off the hook. I think it's interesting just looking at the way so many journalists and media outlets and individuals have been sort of discussing all these controversies and allegations at Activision Blizzard. Very much so, they're putting the emphasis on Blizzard as being the issue, and admittedly that doesn't seem entirely fair, given that Activision and Blizzard are very much the same entity at this point, and Activision as the greater company is just as responsible for what happens in the Blizzard dev teams as the Blizzard management because they're the same. But I guarantee you that this is intentional on Activision Blizzard's part, because Blizzard is the name most people recognize, so of course all their hatred and disdain is going to be targeted at Blizzard specifically, and then Activision can just sort of stand in the background, being more or less invisible to everything going on, let Blizzard take all the heat, and then they can just keep putting out their Call of Duties and whatever else it is they do at this point, while the Blizzard identity effectively serves as a scapegoat to take all the flack. And who knows, maybe at some point Activision will then end up renaming itself to just Activision again, thus ditching the Blizzard component, and they'll use that as a way of saying, we've washed our hands of Blizzard, all that bad stuff everyone was talking about in 2021, that's gone, that's out the door, Blizzard, they're out of here, we're a good company now. Meanwhile, of course, it's literally the exact same company, and if, they aren't changing their leadership positions, then nothing important would have actually changed. So to that extent, I think Activision as a company isn't going to be going under due to all this, but certainly the Blizzard component of Activision, I think, is, at least as a sort of entity in people's minds, I think it's done for. So with that being said, what does that mean for Blizzard's individual IPs? Most notably, of course, being Overwatch. Well, honestly, I'm not entirely sure. I've seen some people talk about how if Blizzard ends up going so far under that they're financially ruined, they might end up having to sell off their IPs to other companies. I don't really know enough about the business side of handling IPs like that to know how reasonable of a possibility that actually is. If anything, I feel like Activision would sort of just step in and be like, all these IPs, World of Warcraft, Overwatch, Diablo, these are now Activision products. Blizzard, forget about them. Activision's Overwatch, sort of thing. That seems much more likely, in my opinion, than Overwatch just being sold off to EA or Tencent or something like that. Because at the end of the day, I do think the individual IPs and franchises within Blizzard do still have potential going forward. Currently, it seems the average person, when you mention Overwatch, just think of Overwatch as a stale game that was fun back in 2016, but hasn't gotten any new content lately, and thus is boring and old and essentially dead. People, thankfully, don't seem to be equating Overwatch specifically too heavily with all the allegations and stuff pertaining to Blizzard, which is why I'm convinced that the franchise itself still has potential going forward. But the other thing to consider in that regard is, what about the development team? As I mentioned, just about every significant veteran developer within the Overwatch dev team is gone at this point. There's a few veterans still sticking around. Of course, you have Aaron Keller, who's the current game director for it, and then you have other people like Jeff Goodman, but so many well-known, well-respected, highly talented devs and other people just working within the Overwatch dev team have left at this point. So many that, honestly, I don't know what to expect when it comes to Overwatch 2 now. By the time Overwatch 2 actually ends up releasing, it's going to have an entirely different team of developers working on it than when the project was first started. It's like the dev team equivalent to the ship of Theseus. If you swap out every individual component of the Overwatch development team, is it even still the same team in the end? And because of that, honestly, I don't think we can really say with any certainty how Overwatch 2 is going to end up turning out. Whatever original vision we saw back at BlizzCon 2019, or even as recently as BlizzConline in early 2021, there will be completely different people working on the game by the time of its eventual release than from what we saw from previous showcases of the game in development. Who knows what sort of changes in creative vision, changes in development and balance ideologies are going to end up taking place between what we've already seen and what we end up getting when the game actually releases. Not only do these types of changes more than explain the reasons for Overwatch 2 taking so long to develop, but also, historically, if you look at games that have gone through this many internal changes in terms of developers and people working on it, there aren't a whole ton of shining stars that come out of those predicaments. If Overwatch 2 is going to actually end up being a successful, well-received sequel to Overwatch, I think it's going to take an incredibly long amount of time for that to play out, and the final product we end up getting is going to be incredibly different from the original Overwatch. I'm not talking in terms of genre or gameplay or anything like that, but simply the little things like individual design choices or philosophies or ideas for how things work. Those are going to be fundamentally different because they're being developed by an entirely different group of people. The Blizzard we historically knew and loved is, in all honesty, dead at this point. Already it seems, just looking at the Overwatch dev team specifically, that there's more new blood in it than old at this point. Most of the names we would recognize in association with Overwatch back in 2016 or 2017 aren't even a part of Blizzard anymore. I'm sure there's a ton of potential when it comes to bringing in talented new developers and employees who have their own creative visions and can bring tons of fresh, new, interesting ideas to the game itself, but at the end of the day, it's going to be a different team. And since it's a different team, Overwatch 2 is going to be a different product. Is this a good or bad thing for Overwatch? Honestly, I think only time is really going to be able to tell. Without a doubt, there is going to be a long delay before we end up seeing Overwatch 2 actually release. You can't have this many people leave the company and bring in new people to replace them and get them caught up to speed this quickly. It's going to take time for people to get caught up and attuned to Overwatch and its development process and get the game actually finished. So if there's one thing we can say with certainty at this point, it's that Overwatch 2 is very much delayed, and the 2023 release state most people have latched onto at this point, even that might be looking a bit optimistic at this point. I'm just going to be honest with you. Unless Blizzard ends up rushing things with a team of essentially all brand new developers, even 2023 seems like it might be a bit soon for Overwatch 2 to release. I hate saying that, but honestly, that's just how I see it at this point. Things are just so screwed up internally at Blizzard, and hopefully, for the dev team's sake and for everyone working at Blizzard's sake, they end up fixing those problems and fixing their terrible management and getting new people into those positions who are going to treat people better. And it is absolutely a good thing that all this is finally coming out at long last, so we can have proper justice served. But in terms of Overwatch itself, it's going to be a long time, I think, until we see anything significant develop with it. So in the long run, yes, I do still think there is hope for Overwatch as a franchise. The IP itself, I think, retains a lot of the good memories and values that people always had for the game, and certainly going forward, I think whoever ends up running the Overwatch IP in the future will certainly be able to put out Overwatch 2 and make it successful, so long as, it's a well-developed game. But whenever that day does end up coming that Overwatch 2 actually ends up releasing, I think it's going to be very different from what we're used to seeing with the original Overwatch, and it's probably not going to be for quite a while still at this point. But these have just been my thoughts about everything regarding Overwatch and Overwatch 2 at this point, following the latest round of terrible Blizzard revelations. Let me know your thoughts on all this in the comments down below. Are you maybe a bit more optimistic than I am at this point? If so, then definitely let me know, because I could certainly use some positivity at this point. But regardless, thank you all so much for watching. Definitely be sure to subscribe, follow me on Twitter, hit up that bell icon, and come join my Discord server to hang out and never miss out on any future, hopefully more optimistic Overwatch news and content. And special thanks to my YouTube channel members who help make these videos possible. If you'd like to join them to earn some cool rewards, then just hit that join button down below. Otherwise, this is Master Ian Gamer signing off, and I hope tomorrow will be a better day.